Hi, and welcome to PMP Study at ADP. My name's Dr. Eddie Ryder, and I am going to take you through the first class, and that's the Introduction to Project Management. So we're going to talk about Module 1A first of all. It's an introduction, talks about the organizational influences and the project cycle. What we're going to do is we're going to try and do some objectives in this module. The first is to define what a project is, differentiate the differences between projects and operational activities, and most of you should understand the difference because if you have a project, there's normally an end cycle to it, whereas operational activities tend to be continuous, meaning we do these every day and they're for the life of the company. We're also going to talk about the composition of the project management, the role of the project manager, what their core competencies are. What is the matrixed environment that a project manager is going to work in? And we're also going to look at identifying who is a stakeholder. And I know the general consensus is that a stakeholder is anybody that's interested in the project, and that's absolutely true. But we want to try and identify exactly what that means. Who should we include? Who should we not include? I mean, obviously a cleaner in the building is not going to be one of the stakeholders, so we're going to exclude them. We also want to talk about the differences between the project team and the project management team, okay? So the project team being the group as a whole and the management team being the people who are going to run the project. And then we're going to talk about an introduction to the project life cycle. So let's start with what is a project. A project, as defined in the PMBOK, is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. Now, key words. Number one, it's unique. Number two, it's temporary. Temporary means there's a start and there is a definitive end to that project. Now, we're going to progressively elaborate on this, understanding what the risks are and how we're going to be involved in processing the individual project. And what you really need to think about is what is it that a project would entail compared to a transactional program? So let's take a transactional program, something you do every day. We do payrolls. We run the payroll every day. It's not a project. We're doing it all the time. It's a continuous process that the company provides to external people. But at the same time, we may not do it on a daily basis. We may do it weekly. We may do it monthly. But there is no end date to it. So therefore, it is transactional. Projects we're going to do in a set format. That is, this is the beginning of the project, this is the end of the project. Good examples, and there are some really excellent examples here, is a new hire training program. And people go, well, that's a continuous transactional thing. No, for the individual who's doing the new hire collaboration, it's a one-off program, right? They join the company and they do this, and that's the end of it. Once they completed it, it's the end. Building a house, yes, we live in it forever, but building the house is a project. There's a definitive start and there is a definitive end. The end is when somebody takes possession of that house and they move into it. And even creating a document can be a good project. Okay, let's talk about projects, the strategy, and their business value to the company, right? So why do we do projects? Well, they're indirectly or directly for an organization. So different companies have different reasons. If you are a construction company, obviously there is a direct project involvement because construction is inherently a number of projects going on all the time. Indirectly, though, if you take somewhere like ADP, there can be all sorts of projects, right? We could be designing a new process, we could be doing workflows, all sorts of stuff like that. The organization itself has to authorize the different projects, and there may be many different reasons for that. You can see some of them here. Market demand is an obvious one because as the market changes, we change our philosophy on how the company works, and therefore we inherently change the projects that we're doing. Business needs. What is a good example? ACA is a perfect example of that. The Affordable Care Act came out. We decided, oh, there's a business need here. We can produce a new sector, and we can dominate that new sector, which is obviously what we've done. Social needs, depending on the company, we may say that, we want to create a project because we want to do more diversity. Great project. Legal need, there might be a compliance issue. In the case of ACA, there's the ACA side that we supply to our customers, but there's also the ACA that we have to do for our compliance needs for our associates to the government. Environmental considerations. This may be a great example with, we're in the Augusta Solution Center here, and we're building an extension on right now. So environmental consideration would be the construction of the extension to this building. A customer request may be, hey, you're producing this software, we would like to see this in the software, or we'd like to see this report, or we'd like to see a new function. And the technological advances. Now, technological advances takes many different forms, but the most obvious one that we've seen in recent years is the advent of the tablet and the smartphone. And therefore, we have taken our systems and we have had projects which take those inherently computer-based systems and upload them into the cloud and make them available on different platforms. Now, business value, the entire value of the business is also all the tangible and intangible elements. So there can be different reasons, different areas, but there may be different functional reasons why we're doing a particular project. And that's where we're going to kind of delve into that later on. Project management gives organizations the ability to apply knowledge, processes, skills, tools, and techniques that enhance the likelihood of success over a wide range of projects. The important thing here is that we're delivering a result based on something that we've been asked to do. Now, what is project management? Really, again, it's the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques, but it's broken down into a very specific area. There are 5 process groups, 10 knowledge areas, and 47 processes. Now, the team that's teaching you is going to be teaching you these 5, 10, 47 items on a constant basis. They're going to keep on testing you. In fact, in Lesson 2, Module 2, you will have a test on this. And we will keep on testing you on this because these are very key issues and they come up all the time. Now, what is project management? Let's talk about the process groups first. Initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and then closing the project. This is the standard PMP process groups everywhere you go. I'll also point out something else. If you've done Six Sigma, done a black belt or a green belt, you've done something like TQM, lean manufacturing, any of these processes, you will recognize this. Even SDLC. You will recognize this because it's basically done by every team in every area. Initiating the project, planning how you're going to do the project, executing that project. Whilst it's being executed, you're monitoring it and controlling the aspects of it, and then finally closing out the project. The knowledge areas, again, very important. Integration, how are we going to integrate this? The scope of the project, we're going to talk a lot about scope, because scope includes both scope into the project as well as what we will exclude from the project. Time. What is the time? How long is it going to take? What are we going to put in there? Can there be parallel time basis? We're going to talk all about that. Cost. Obviously, there's always a cost involved, whether it's tangible or intangible. Quality. One of the things we always want to do is maintain a good quality product. We're going to talk about quality insurance and quality assurance, and I'm going to cover that more distinctly later on. But here's a question for you. What is the difference between quality insurance and quality assurance? I ask this all the time. People really struggle with it. Here's the difference. Think of it like this. A car on an assembly line being built. At the end of the assembly line, I look at the car and it has a dent in it. And I go, okay, we have to take this car off the line. We have to now take the time to remove the door, get a new door, put a new door on before we can sell the product. And we have all this money tied up in this vehicle. That's quality insurance. Quality assurance is if I had had somebody way back when the first doors arrived, inspect the doors. I'm assuring the quality before I get to the end of the production line. There's a little lesson for you. Human resources, obviously humans and people and how we're going to handle them. A lot of people struggle with this as well. Human resources, there are two aspects of this, okay? The first is if we were building a house, I may subcontract out, in which case I'm not interested in the human resources as far as the building is concerned, but I am concerned with the human resources as far as the products are concerned. Communication. Obviously, we want to make sure our stakeholders are kept informed, all the people involved are informed, including financially. Risk. We all know what risk is. Here down in the south, our risk is mostly rain or getting sunburnt. One of the two. Procurement. The products, the systems, what we're going to buy, how we're going to buy it. RFPs, that is a request for a proposal. And then the stakeholders, the people who are actually involved in the project and how they're going to be, what their status is going to be in that project. So here are the 47 areas that we're going to be looking at. These are all of the processes, and we better start learning them because you're going to have to do all of these at some point and you're going to get questions on them. I'm not going to go through all of them right now. We will be covering them later, but I would start learning these as soon as possible. So, what is the role of the project manager? What are their key competencies? Now, you look at me, key competency, good looks. But aside from that, my compatriots here are all laughing. The side of this is that the project manager has to know certain skills. The person assigned by the performing organization to lead the team that is responsible for achieving the project deliverables. You know, this is all very fancy words. What it means is this neck is on the block. So I'm ultimately responsible for that deliverable. What are we going to deliver? We want to achieve the project deliverables by satisfying what the task needs are, what the team needs, and what the individuals need. The three core competencies here: knowledge, what do you know about project management? Performance, what does the project manager accomplish in this process? Personal, how the PM behaves personally, personal effectiveness. So I don't know about you, I've been in many projects where I'm sitting there going, what is the PM's job here? I thought this was their job. Aren't they meant to communicate? I don't get it. So this is where it's very important to have a good project manager who understands what their requirements. Okay, so this next slide is about the triple constraint, and basically it's a very simple concept. You see that we have three sides here: a cost, a scope, and a time. Basically, if you increase the scope of a project, so we want to do more things than was originally agreed to, it is going to increase that line, and therefore the cost is going to increase, or the time, or both. If the time is going to be spread out, the cost is going to increase, or the scope is going to increase, or both. If the cost is reduced or increased, the scope is going to reduce or increase, and so is the time. Basically, what this is telling you is, the triple constraint is, if you change one of these parameters, you're going to change the others. So be prepared for that. Now, we have a lot of software that does this today, Microsoft Project being one of them, and it allows us to do calculations to see what the differentiation is. Very often, and in bigger companies, where you have a full project management office or an enterprise project management office, they will use systems such as Project Manager And what they're basically doing is being able to say to a customer, hey, if you want this change, this is what it's going to cost, or this is how long it's going to take. So we can express it more clearly to the customer or the stakeholder. Now, this is the matrix or the role of the project manager, and basically it's looking at the difference between what the project manager's authority is against what the role of the project manager is. So if you have a strong matrixed environment and you know that you have a lot of authority, you have a dedicated project manager on the project, then of course your role of the project manager is going to be full-time, because really you can't do this as a part-time job. However, if they're only doing it part-time, they may have no authority whatsoever, and they might really be just acting to keep the paperwork, like a very expensive secretary or administrator. So you've got to see the difference in what the matrixed environment is in a particular company. Now, a lot of companies have what's called shared matrices or mixed matrices, where you may be a full project manager on one project, but just helping out on another. And especially in project management offices, we see that a lot. You have a primary project manager and then 2 or 3 others that are doing sub-projects for you. Other roles within the project management office are the stakeholder and the sponsor. Now, I'm going to start with the sponsor here. The sponsor's job, and you have different types of sponsors. You may have an executive sponsor or a vendor sponsor or even a divisional sponsor. And really what they are the overseers. When the project is getting hit, maybe there's finance problems, maybe we need to express something to management, something like that. That's when the sponsor will come in. And their job is to provide resources and support for the project. Now this, of course, as you see here, can be a program or a portfolio. Program is one individual project. Program is a group of projects. Portfolio is the company-wide view or the holistic view of the systems and projects. Now think about it as, for example, an ERM system where you have order management, finance, etc., etc. The portfolio is the entire company, but the individual pieces are projects in it. Stakeholders, they're the individuals. Now, again, we talked about this a little earlier. You have to decide who is a stakeholder to a project, and really the definition is anybody who has or is affected by the outcome of a decision or activity is a stakeholder. But obviously, I know the cleaner comes in and cleans the floor in here, they're not a stakeholder. Or you have to make a decision as to whether I need to keep this stakeholder informed or not. That is a very good indicator as to whether somebody should be a stakeholder or not. So for example, in ADP, GSO, as a general rule, which is our security office, is a stakeholder in most projects we do. If nothing else, I send them an email and say, hey, we're doing this, are you okay with it? And they might send someone along, or they might ask for documentation just to look at. Again, legal is another area where we generally always add them in as a stakeholder. Project team versus project management team. So here, the project management team, which is the core team, works on the plan itself. Their job is to, if you like, build the project out. What is required, do the procurement, set up the communication, assess risks, and that may be a different area. So a good example of that would be GSO. GSO may be just a part of the project management team. They may come in and say, I'll take a look at it, we'll look at this, and if there's a risk, we'll have somebody on the team. The project team would be, if GSO were involved in the project, they would send us a subject matter expert or somebody to sit on the team itself to make sure certain things are done. Legal, same thing. Legal may overlook the project and be part of the project management team, but if there were documents to be written and we needed some sort of formal document written, for example, a procurement document, then we'd have somebody on the project team doing that process. So again, different people, different areas, and it does vary, so don't think there is an absolute answer in all these cases. It varies a lot. Now let's talk a little bit about the life cycles. The product life cycle is a sequential, non-overlapping process. Initiation, design, launch, manufacture, and obsolescence. Now, obsolescence is, questionable because in most cases it's a loop, meaning we go back to some form of design change or initiation. Somebody asks for something else. On the other hand, on a project life cycle, it includes everything for that product or service. It can be sequential, it can overlap. It is different for each industry, so it's very difficult to express exactly how it works. But let's give an example here of an IT project. There's an initiation, design, coding, unit testing, integration testing, user acceptance, and then a rollout. There might be some transitional activities or phases because we're rolling it out in pieces rather than a whole holistic view. Now, let me tell you something about this. When we talk about project management, there is also another group that's called systems design analysts. They are project managers, but in IT. And there's a whole analyst vertical market, which I actually teach at university as well. So two direct relations, but really they're different systems. Project management really comes to construction. Systems analysis really comes into the IT side. However, they're interchangeable because all of the functionality in each of them is the same for both systems. Project management life cycle, not industry specific, valid for all projects. So this is where we get our process: initiation, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closure. Project management. That's all we're going to do in this class. Okay, process group interaction. We're getting into the final bit, so you don't have to listen to me anymore. But project cycle. Here is a great example of all of the phases in the project over a life cycle or the time life cycle. And what you notice here is not only do they overlap, but some of them can continue all the way through the project and go up and down. Good examples of this is monitoring and controlling. You've got to monitor and control the project right from day one all the way to the end. Communication would be something that we'd put into that group, because what are we going to do? We're going to communicate based on the people that need to know information, what information, how, and even things like the status of the project. The only other thing I want to really point out here is these vary, okay? So even though we're demonstrating here how they cross over, some can be completely sequential, meaning like a waterfall. One finishes before the next starts. Doesn't happen normally, but it can. All right, objectives review about the Module 1A. The projects are unique, temporary, progressively elaborated, meaning we grow them as we go along. Project management has 47 logical groups or PM processes. Projects and operational activities are temporary and unique versus ongoing and routine. Project manager, what their core competencies are: knowledge, performance, personal. They meet the needs to deliver products, services, or results. This is the deliverable that we want the project manager to give us. The matrix is a definition of how much information they have, what control they have over the project, and how much time they're spending within that project. Stakeholders, anyone involved in or impacted by the project. Project team and the project management team. The project team is assigned to deliver certain things. They have SMEs, they have end users, there are people involved in doing it. The project team is the core team. They do the documentation, the core budget, the scheduling of the projects, the time, all communications, they assess risk, etc., etc. And then finally, the project life cycle. Now, these are your PM study team. I'm just going to show you this. This is the team that's going to be teaching you over the next few weeks. And I just want to bring this slide up as well. This is our references for this particular PowerPoint presentation. What I want you to remember is, if you really want to be a project manager and you really want to get this certification, you're going to have to work hard at it. It's not an easy certification. You're going to have to do a lot of learning. You're going to have to do a lot of tests. But trust me, at the end of it, you are going to feel like $1,000,000. It's worth every bit of time that you put into it. But it is up to you. I hope you do well. This is the end of Module 1. I believe Dennis DaCosta's on Module 2, so I will see you probably later on in the course. Thank you so much. Bye.